You got John McMullen, Jody McDonald, a.k.a. Mac and Mac here on Birds 365, and we've got Paul Hawaiian Shirt Domowitch here with us. Domo, good to see you. Love the shirt. Here's where I want to go with you first, Mr. 33rd Team. 33rd Team is often the team of officials on the field. And last night's officials to me, and they had a guy in the booth who was just confirming everything, which I didn't quite understand. Minimum of 4 pass interference penalties that they missed. And I think that they're a little quick to throw the flag, but you get to a level, you watch enough football, you get to a level, you believe you know it is a pass interference penalty. There were a whole bunch of them on both sides last night. I couldn't believe that they didn't call because it looks like what I think of as a pass interference. And the analyst that they had, the ex-referee, was saying, oh, no, if it's simultaneous, if it's close enough, if it's the ball coming together, that's a good non-call. And I'm going, really? Okay, if you say so. Are we to read into this that they're going to give D-backs a little bit more leg room here this year, that you're going to be able to get there slightly ahead of the ball and be able to, like, pull a guy's arm down like they did to A.J. Brown last night?
Well, so far they seem to be. On some of those calls yesterday, I got to agree. I think the analyst pointed out at one point that, you can watch them in slow motion and you say, well, it's an obvious pass interference. He grabbed his arm before, like on the AJ deep ball to AJ Brown. It was pretty clear that he knocked his arm down before he ever had a chance to touch the ball. And then you watch it in real time, and it's hard if you're an official. It's hard to make a call there. So I think it appears that they've been told to err on the side of let them play this year as opposed to over officiating.
Is that a good thing?
I think it is. I like
Good.
it.
So do I.
Let them play. Let those guys battle.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. That was pass interference on AJ. I didn't notice that many. I think Evans was early on somebody.
And the one down the middle of the field in the fourth quarter, he was like there a second and a half ahead of time. Yeah. A blatant pass interference.
Yeah.
And
I noticed too.
Slay had at least 2.
Slay, yeah.
They let Slay play against Jefferson.
Yeah, they did last year.
Interferences. They're like, nope, you got to play on.
Man, that was part of the success last year. For people that thought that was going to continue, that wasn't going to. Jefferson, whatever. But who cares? Like I said, he had, what do you have, 111 receptions for 159. All right, he's a great receiver. Who cares? They have no offensive line. They can't block anybody. Of course, he's going to make some plays at time. But that's where I want to start with you, Damo. This offensive line, this, as you pointed out, 10th 200-yard rushing performance in the Nick Sirianni era. That's ridiculous in the modern NFL. Those holes, I wish people could see it from over top, as you got to see many years in the press box. DeAndre Swift, phenomenal game. I know people are going to get on me because I criticized the Eagles running back room as a whole. He had a tremendous game. But man, these holes, Damo. Let's put it this way. If DeAndre Swift was running behind the Vikings offensive line, he would not have had a great game. You got to talk about the offensive line first, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing about last night's performance, as opposed to the other 9 200-plus yard rushing performances since Nick took over, is the quarterback wasn't really a factor in this one. As far as the run game. In the first 2 games, teams have found a way to shut him down as a runner, but it didn't matter. That offensive line just completely dominated and pushed the Vikings, back. And it was just, I watched some of the post-game show with Ron Jaworski on the other channel, and old-time guys like Jaworski who still crave the run were like, he was drooling.
Oh yeah, I said that was the best drive in Philadelphia history. They won 16 plays, 13 runs. And Kelsey was talking about after the game. It was like It was all inside zone. It was all the same thing. Inside zone, inside zone, inside zone, inside. And he said, it's got to be boring for the play caller. But, you know, to his credit, people are criticizing Brian Johnson. Why would you stop? And he didn't stop. It was the most Philadelphia drive ever. And it's you know, I can't say enough about it. Our old friend Jordan Hicks is on Minnesota. At one point, Jordan Mailata completely pancaked him. Kelsey dominant. Cam Jurgens has fit in seamlessly. We were all concerned about that. Now, they'll have tougher tests, no doubt about it. Although I think New England was a tough test. I think Tampa Bay has a good defense. The Jets, Jody's Jets are coming up. Very good defense. They're going to have some tougher tests. But I never go into a game, Damo, saying, oh, the other side has an advantage on the Eagles' offensive line. Literally, never. That is a tremendous luxury to have.
Yeah. I mean, this franchise's approach from going back to when Laurie and Banner took over in the mid-'90s was you build through the lines. You obviously need a good quarterback. But if you've got two strong lines, you've got a chance to go places. And, you know, right now they've got the best offensive line in the league probably. And, you know, watching Josh Sweat yesterday, I mean, he looks like a combination of Myles Garrett and Khalil Mack.
Yeah. Wow. He had a tremendous game. Real quick, before you jump in, Jody, why don't teams copy the Eagles? Why do other – like, I get it from a fan perspective. They always want to see the skill position guys. It's fun to watch Jefferson run around, and he's a phenomenal player. Why do other teams, they always call it a copycat league. Why don't they realize you can't? I've been talking about it all week. If you can't block people, you can't play offense in this league. Why don't more teams copy what the Eagles do?
You know, it's going to be this is an interesting contrast this year between a team like the Eagles, who, you know, very diverse. I mean, if you stop their run, and teams will at some point, I mean, they can throw on you, as opposed to a team like Miami. I mean, Miami basically has said, we've got the two best wide receivers in the league. We're just going to beat you with their speed on the outside, try and stop us. And, you know, so far that hasn't happened in the first game, but it'll be interesting to see if somebody comes up with a formula to take out Hill and Waddle and make them do other things like teams are making the Eagles do right now.
And I'll argue with you, John, that other teams try. I'll give you one right in the own division. The Giants try. The Giants drafted two tackles in the first round in 5 years. They spent big on the guy they brought in from New England. But then you got to pick the right guy. Just saying, we're going to give me the hog mollies was the old manager's phrase that he used. Yeah, but then you have to pick the right hog mollies. Yeah. What they do here in Philadelphia is come up with
You're right, because actually Minnesota's got 2 first-round picks, 3 second-round picks on their offensive line, and they can't block anybody. So that's a good point. So I'll tweak it a little bit. Like that Jeff Stoutland.
He's the guy. Why? There's your reason.
Now, you can't, obviously, you can't. Jeffrey has made him, if not the highest paid assistant position coach in the league, certainly one of the highest. In fact, that stuff's not publicized, but I'm pretty confident he's the highest. So you can't steal him away. But why aren't, whether it was Eugene Chung before, who has had trouble, Roy Isman, why aren't people, trying to pilfer away his assistants? I don't know. Sometimes I don't understand this league.
That's legit.
I think with Stoutland, I mean, I don't know necessarily it's like what you've learned from him as assistant. I mean, this guy knows what he did with Jordan Mailata I've said this before, that's going to be on his tombstone. I mean, he took a lump of clay and has turned him into a guy who's playing a Pro Bowl caliber player who might end up being all pro at some point if he continues to improve.
Yeah.
Dom, I want to ask you about, and again, I confess that I try and take notes when I watch the game, but sometimes you just can't figure stuff. I have to go back and check the snap count thereafter. And I was again surprised to see so few snaps for the Eagles rookies, which they talked up a blue streak. And John would come on and say they would look good in practice during the limited practices that they had during camp. Sheldon Brown not playing again and Smith not playing again. They weren't 7th and 8th round picks. This is a 1st and a 3rd round, a high 3rd round pick at that. And the Eagles are dropping like flies, injuries all over the place, and these guys can't get on the field. Put rookies out there. They played so little last night and looked, according to those who were there, so good in camp. Why do you think so few snaps for the Eagles defensive rookies? Not named Jalen Carter.
Yeah. Well, I think, yeah. I mean, Sidney Brown, I think I don't know, he didn't play at all on defense in week 1. I think he played 5 snaps yesterday. I mean, this kind of goes back to their approach last year with Nakobe Dean, I think. I mean, they don't want guys out there that are going to make a mistake that's going to give up a big play because, you know, their whole emphasis on defense, although you wouldn't know it yesterday because of all the subs they're using and the mistakes that are being made. They don't want to give up the big play. They don't want to give up make the big mistake. And so if they don't have to play rookies, they don't want to. I mean, Carter last week played, I think 40% of the snaps, 45, which was quite a bit, and ended up, you know, dominating. I don't know what he played yesterday, snap wise.
Same in the 40s again.
Yeah, 40, 48.
He's the one. I mean, he's just you're not hesitating with him. Plus, he plays on the defensive line. You know, if he can get to the quarterback, nothing else matters. Whereas linebackers and DBs can make that one mistake that's going to cost you 7. So I think that's their approach. Nick feels as long as he's got veteran players that he can rely on, that's the direction he'd rather go right now than take a chance on a rookie.
All right, Dama, let's go to the offensive side, the passing game part of it. It's not been impressive. A little bit disjointed. A lot of criticism already of Brian Johnson. Seth on our post game, so he already wants to take the play calling duties away from the poor guy. I'm like, whoa, come on. It's 2 games. But hey, there's, you know, a high expectation level around here. And then you got AJ's complaining on the sideline, not getting the football. Now, you know, maybe could have had a touchdown. They had a touchdown called back to AJ, and that was a clear hold from, I think it was Penny. So you can't complain too much about that. But as Jody pointed out, you also had the obvious PI that didn't get called. Maybe he would have been happier. A, do you have a problem with AJ complaining when they're winning the game? And B, what's wrong with this passing game as a whole?
Well, the first question, yeah. I mean, that was the potential when AJ came here was, can you keep 2 wide receivers, 2 elite guys happy? I mean, Devontae Smith is not a guy that's going to make noise, but I think that's why they are, you know, you're not going to see these 2 here long term. One's going to, maybe one, but, you know, there's probably at some point, and AJ is probably the likely guy. Once the cap comes into play here, one of them's got to go. I mean, that's just going to be a fact of life. But, you know, I thought
AJ realizes he's going to be that guy because he's probably going to be the guy that goes.
Yeah, it's my guess is it's a little too early for him to be dwelling on that, but maybe not. You know, I thought after last year, watching the way Jalen handled him, that it would be less of a problem than if AJ was still in Tennessee or someplace else where he was not getting enough targets to keep him happy. But maybe not. I mean, the problem is right now, the quarterback's not at the top of his game. So he doesn't need AJ bitching and moaning right now. And he has little patience for it, which is probably going to strain their relationship if it continues. But as far as Jalen and the passing game, you know, he looks confused right now. teams clearly. I mean, Brian Flores and Bill Belichick clearly spent an inordinate amount of time in the offseason.
Yes, and they're both great, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't think people realize. Yeah,
and the problem is other other teams they're going to be facing are going to watch what Flores and Belichick are doing to this offense, to this quarterback, and follow suit. I mean, like I said, they've taken away the option, the run option. You watched yesterday, every time he'd fake to Swift and try to run with it on a designed run, those safeties were up and playing very smart. I mean, they weren't overplaying. They just gave him no room to run. And so, and then I watched him in the pocket, too many predetermined passes. You saw that last week when he missed Goddard wide open twice because he was focused on Brown or focused on Smith. That you can't do that in this league. I mean, and he, but they're confusing him a little bit. And I think, he'll get better at it. He's seeing different things this year than he saw last year when nobody seemed to be paying attention to his or respecting his passing ability. So, and, I watched a play early on in the game yesterday. I've only gotten through the first quarter on the film. He's in the pocket, steps up. He's got an easy dump off to Boston Scott, which he should have done. I don't know how many yards Boston Scott would have gotten, but he wouldn't have gotten sacked. Instead, he holds the ball and takes a 3-yard loss, and they end up punting. Those are the things he's got to avoid. And I think he's going to get better at this. And I think Brian Johnson and he are probably, going to be spending night and day in the film room during this long hiatus before they play again. But yeah, I mean, he's not playing like he did last year right now. And I think a lot of it has to do with what defense, the first two defenses are doing to him.
Which gets me back to what John and I started with on the show, Damo, which is, sometimes you just take what the other team gives you. If they're going to play light boxes and safeties back and not let Jalen beat him over the top and have guys spying him and not allowing him to run the RPOs, okay, zone read right up the middle. Here we go. 13 carries, 15 plays. Well, at some point, doesn't the DC have to adjust to that? If Flores is this defensive genius, how do you go with the drive that the Eagles did and just run it right down your throats? At some point, you got to go, all right, we might need to flex out of this. All right, they've kind of figured out what we figured out here. We have to adjust now. And the Vikings never did.
Well, because they're playing against the best offensive line in the game, for starters. It's not as easy as just saying, we're going to stop this. We're going to put an extra guy in the box, because they can handle an extra guy in the box and still run the ball. This reminds me so far of 2 years ago, not last year, but you remember 7 games in, the offense is struggling. Jalen's at a point, Jalen still hasn't gotten it yet. And Nick just said, let's just focus on the run game and stop putting so much pressure on our quarterback. And, after that, they were averaging, I think, the rest of the season, last 9 games that year, something like 175 rushing yards a game. Yeah. And
they were all talking about it last night, Tom. Landon was, would you, he always says that. Would you rather punch somebody in the face or get punched in the face? Of course we want to run block. And sometimes you want to, but I get the Eagles' philosophy. We all know Jeffrey Lurie, and he's right. You got to have a high octane passing attack to win consistently in this league, the way it's set up now. But boy, they have such an advantage running the football. I do start to wonder, why do they mess around so much? And I asked Nick that, and he kind of said, well, sometimes it's the passing game that turns us around and gets us out of the lull. But man, when those guys get going, they have 4 all-pro level players on the offensive line, and Cam Jurgens, who looks pretty good after 2 starts. I'm not in love with the running backs, but they just paved the way for 170. What did he end up with? 175 yards for DeAndre Swift, whose career best was 144 against the Eagles before last night. You know, he's never had more than 600, I think, and 13 yards in an NFL season. He had 175 in one game. I kind of I'm going back to 2 years ago. I'm going to ride this offensive line, and maybe they switch up, Damo. At some point, you're talking about everybody's trying to do this to Jalen, everybody's doing, and then they say, "Oh, we're getting gouged. We got to change," and then it opens up AJ and Devontae. The problem is AJ going to persevere until he starts getting the football again?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what defenses do to them going forward, and how they counter it. I mean, we still haven't seen much of the slant game, quick slants.
Yeah,
yesterday you take away those two deep balls. I think that accounted for like 110 of their 174.
Yeah, Devontae only averaged 33 yards a catch last night.
Yeah. Last year's screens were very effective. Yesterday, teams have shut that down too. They tried it about 5 times yesterday. None of them had any success because teams have kind of studied those on film too, and obviously something has set off a trigger that allows them to get a jump on them. So, but I mean, the key to this offense last year was its diversity. You stop the run, we're going to beat you with the pass. You stop the pass, we're going to beat you with the run. So I don't, long term, they're going to be teams that aren't going to let them do this. So they need to crank up their passing game.
All right, Damo, need an answer to this one because it cost me my wagers last night. I figured improperly. I knew the Eagles were going to throw the ball to Dallas Goedert, and I should have used his over in catches rather than his over in yards because the over in yards was 48. And he made 6 catches for 22 yards. When did Dallas Goedert become the dump-off guy? I remember Dallas Goedert getting down the seam and running over people and averaging about a 12-yard per reception number. And last night they got him the ball after only throwing it to him once week 1, but he didn't make a play all night long. What was the Eagle line of thinking there? Is that the new use of the tight end? He's the release guy?
Well, I don't think it was intended for him to be the dump off guy. His yards after the catch, last year I believe he was either first or second yards after the catch among tight ends. This year, I mean, he's catching the ball and there's somebody putting him on the ground. So I'm going to give credit to the defense there. They are not letting him get open. The screen, like I said earlier, the screens didn't work. That was last year. I want to say almost 20% of his receiving yards last year came on screens. So again, teams have studied this offense. They have, the first 2 teams they have played have found ways to take away some of the weapons, some of the things they did so well last year. And now it's time for Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni to go back to the film room and figure out a way to counter. It's like a chess game.
Defensively, Damo, I don't think the Eagles played all that well. Well, I think the front played well. I think Slay played as well as a cornerback can when a receiver gets 11 for 159. I still think that's how good Jefferson is, but I thought he played well. But they had the 4 turnovers. Now, one was on special teams. Do we give them credit for? I mean, they punched the ball out. It was Terrell Edmonds on Jefferson. It was Justin Evans on the punt return. Sweat with the most notable with the forced fumble. Then I forget who knocked it out of Madison. Avante knocked it out at the last second. Is that just sort of? You can't count on it, but I know the Eagles, Nick will tell you, we practice. They got the big ball security sign at the NovaCare complex. Can you count on that week after week?
No, not 4 in one game. Last year, you look at the numbers, first 8 games, plus 15 turnover differential. I mean, they were just knocking balls left and right. They weren't making their own errors. Last 9 games, they had a -8 turnover differential. And not coincidentally, went 6-3 in those games. Yesterday, I mean, should we give him any credit on the Jefferson fumble? I mean, that was more him than was it Evans?
Probably.
Trying to,
Edmonds, and that play was a 10-point turnaround. That was a swing.
Yeah.
They scored a touchdown there, and the Eagles don't get the 61-yard field goal, and it's so I mean they were very fortunate to win this game. But then I give them the excuse that they're missing Blankenship, they were missing Bradbury, they lose Maddox, and I think my guess is he's going to be out multiple weeks. I don't know. We'll find out, but.
Yeah, he was holding his shoulder. It didn't look great. Yeah.
No, and he's just a guy that's always going to get hurt now. I mean, you can't count on him. Too small. He's getting the crap kicked out of him inside. I thought that's where he belonged because he's his quickness makes him such
he's almost, I always say, he's almost too physical. He's too physical for his body type. He throws his body around, which is impressive. Yeah, exactly. But he can't hold up with his body type.
Yeah.
And he's a good player when he's out there.
You're going to go long term with Goodrich in the slot? That scares me.
T.J. Hawkinson is not known for his yards after catch ability. I think he had 8 for 35 in week 1, and he ran over Mario Goodrich like he wasn't there on the one play. So. Yeah,
I mean, it scares me. They gave up 3 touchdowns on Minnesota's last 4 possessions. I mean, they had a chance to put this game away and just were incapable of it.
Oh, it was 20. At one point, it was 27-7. I mean, the game should have been over.
Exactly. They couldn't close.
Yeah.
Right. But is Josiah Scott still available on the street? They may be putting a call into him.
No, he's on Steelers. Steelers picked up Josiah.
Steelers picked him up? Sorry, Josiah.
I'd put a call into Asante.
Yeah.
I'd call Asante Samuel. Get him out of retirement.
All right. Damo, last one for me. They're 2-0 now. And you got a nice mini bye here in the middle of the season, which will let them get healthy before they have to take it on the road down to Tampa. Tampa beat the Vikings last week, and the Eagles just beat the Vikings. So if A equals B and B equals C, the Bucs got any shot against the Eagles down in their house come 10 days from now?
Baker Mayfield? No. I mean, Kirk Cousins can kind of slice and dice a defense if you let him. I think Baker Mayfield's going to get sacked 7 times and throw 4 interceptions. I have little faith in that guy.
Well, the big game for Josh Sweat, baby, coming. I feel NFC Defensive Player of the Week for Josh Sweat in that game.
No, it's after that. It's after that game that things get a little tough and they got to play better. But I think they can still struggle with some of the problems they've got and still beat Tampa Bay on the road.
Got to get a little
offensively. Yeah, the Eagles will score too many, but they can't keep up with the Eagles offensively. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
All right, Damo. Always a pleasure when we get you on. We love handicapping you. I'll ask this of John McMullen. Which wardrobe is more intriguing, Damo's or Gil's? The Gil T-shirt from where, or the Damo? What color is this week's Hawaiian shirt gonna be?
I love the Hawaiian shirt. I love I love when Andy shows up with them. I love when Damo shows up with them. Gil's just taking Ivy League T-shirts to try to make himself look smart. So,
and we see through that. But we love seeing Damo when he punches up on our show. Thank you much for doing it today, Damo. We'll talk to you next week.
Take care, guys.
Thanks, bud.
Paul Domowitch, 33rd team, and his stat pack on JAKIBSports.com. You got to check it out each and every single week. All right, Johnny Mac, Jody Mac coming back about 25 minutes from now. Our pal Scotty Grayson from Fox 29 is going to join us. Still plenty of Eagles, Vikings to break down from last night. And at some point, we got to talk about the big game coming up this weekend. All you Eagle fans out there, join hands with me, Jody McDonald, and say J-E-T-S, Jets, 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 as they go down to Dallas to take on the Cowboys. We're coming back next here on Birds 365.